cetera, et cetera.
Not killing her is the harder ending on everyone's character. It puts everyone in a
because the other thing is that they're
they're
put in this thing where like they are now like trapped in some sort of bizarre alter past.
Yep.
But the loop has been broken.
Yep.
You know.
And the only thing that I really don't want to talk about because of just how little time we have left on this Let's Play is having that choice at the end was perfectly set because of how strong the theme of death and how to define death and understand death and the effects of death has been thoroughly just like pounded into us at every single turn. Every city we went to had like a side quest that this was about. There's a lot there, and someone needs to start writing some really long, smart pieces about.
I plan on going home immediately and putting in some work on this game
because God, that was cool.
And I think that's the end of the credits there. Developed by Tokyo RPG
Factory.
Short,
short credits, like really short.
Good job to a group of new developers. You had hey, we have a post-credit sequence. This is interesting. This might also just be them reloading the menu.
The snow textures are so good. They're so good. Setsuna!
Notice that's one of those little tower structures that we never really took a look at.
Yep, in the background there.
And he's alone.
Hey! Yeah!
Lovely, lovely game.
Save the game?
Do a different save.
Yep.
Also, you should really clean up some of these saves.
It's fine. It's a PS4. They're adult about the whole situation. Is it okay? You want to go back to the title screen? Is that okay?
Let's do a little bit of cooldown here.
Yep. We got a little bit of shopkeeping to do before we sign out.
So the thing is, as well, the way I would interpret it is that if you don't strike her down, that they decide to spend time together, essentially. That she wants to be alone with this person to just ease their anguish and all that sort of thing. But also that Endir casts himself to the same fate, essentially, to spend the time together in an almost MGS4 sense.
Yep.
That's a big difference. The other thing we need to see, and I think you should go back and replay
what you're saying at this point is you're saying the ending is valuable.
Right.
What I'm saying is that the ending was earned.
Right.
Over the course of the whole story.
And both endings seem very, because the whole game is about the ambiguity.
My point is the ending that is you get to make one final decision. You're saying that was valuable, and I'm saying that was earned. Continue.
Yeah. The other thing we need to see, because we don't have all the text here, is you need to go back and I would recommend going back and playing the rest of the character resolution side quests and stuff like that. Because if any of them are as good as that ending, they're worth playing. That's one of the better video game endings I've seen in a long time. The other thing being that we also don't know if we're explicitly shown striking her down or not striking her down one way or the other, which is interesting because if it plays out that way with you not striking her down, well, say you get the same thing both times, where you decide either to strike her down or not strike her down, and she says thank you, and it pans up and it's ambiguous. It's interesting. Sure it's interesting because either the player chooses to defy the structure, the objective structure of the game, and have the player character defy their own purpose at our command, or you could command them to do the same thing, and it could imply it's like a 4 box, right?
I guess
it's like a 1 out of 4 options, where it's either like complete synchronicity between player character and player objectives, or rather like your objectives and the player character objectives, like what you want them to do and what they do.
Right, from the game studies
disagreement between what you tell them to do and what they do. A disagreement between what you tell them to do and what they do. There's 2 different versions of that based on either whether you say to not strike her down and he doesn't, or you tell him to strike him down and he doesn't do it. And then the idea that you both decide to not strike her down. So there's there's 4 options.
I see what you're saying is that there's 4 interpretations.
All of which calls to mind some really Howellian stuff about.
You're saying that there's actually 4 interpretations of the ending.
Right.
That
this is. I mean, again, you have to play it again to see if that's actually true. But that's what I'm going on right now.
I'm sure it is. I'm absolutely sure that that's how it's.
We did read an article that says the ending is the same every time.
No, not only that, but because every choice that we've made up to this point, the text that comes afterwards, it doesn't matter which choice you made. It's a non-answer that makes the player responsible for what Endir says.
There's also the idea that
all the other characters react to that the exact same. And so I'm thinking this ending, everyone reacts the exact same to the ending. It's left open-ended so that you can interpret that. And I like how you're saying that the ending of I Am Setsuna means that Endir may have just not done what we, the players, said.
There's also...
Or Endir may have done what we, the players, said. And there's no way that we could know.
There's also the fact that imagine the idea that the game's ending would only make sense, rather like the whole cycle of sacrifices and monsters and all that stuff, that only happens because that would only be ceased if we killed the monster.
Right.
These characters, imagine that was true.
Yep.
In that case, these characters would still be reacting as though we did it.
Okay.
Which seems to imply that any ending you get ends the sacrificial process one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Powerful stuff.
That's nice. Yeah.
I think that goes in a lot of different directions.
God. Wow. That's
not a perfect game by any stretch,
thought.
but not a perfect game by any stretch, but a game that starts
what
strong
is?
and finishes strong, and with lots of really strong bits in between, a lovely soundtrack, a lovely aesthetic that is totally unique.
Fun characters that we can identify with, and
right, and it felt like everybody, we could probably feel
flexible game.
Right, we could probably feel it even more if we played more of the side quests and like felt more of the stuff. And then if we did those side quests as well, the game's ludic structure would open up a little bit more to some more viable gameplay strategies and that sort of thing.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about a Let's Play, is that
right,
this is what we get.
This is the Setsuna we got. This is the Setsuna we were. And
I was that Setsuna. You saw it.
And
you were there, and I was there, and you were there.
And the end result of it is just a game that, like I said, not perfect, but just really, really lovely.
Yep.
And I'm glad we decided to stick with it. I'm glad I decided to stick with it, because I kind of had faith that, I know we keep coming back to it, and I really don't mean to keep complaining, but that is also sometimes proof that you really ought to stick with something, even if it gives you a really bad impression or a bad taste in your mouth. Because there was that. We played that third hour, and I hated this game.
Yep.
But
hey, then 16 hours later, you're like, oh,
this is really great. And the other thing being, I think it just proves the promise of the initial concept that that Square could fund an indie RPG and make something worthwhile. The other thing being that it's also a game that references past tropes and all that, and sometimes even directly quotes like specific character arcs or specific ludic structures or specific narrative structures, but still manages to remix them to different narrative purposes and different ludic purposes and different conclusions and that sort of thing, which keeps it within the Square Enix tradition of taking the JRPG form and just retooling it as much as possible to create different, different and artistically interesting effects.
You said a lot of words,
and I think that got it at the end. And I think that makes it a valuable addition to the Square canon.
Cool.
And I hope to see what this developer does next.
So, this is us. This is our final record of. You are going to be moving away from here. Mm-hmm. This is our last time being together. Mm-hmm. And so I want to thank you so much for being able to record I Am Setsuna. For us to be able to have created this Let's Play together. Mm-hmm. I think this is fucking awesome.
One of the first things we did was, I remember when I moved here, if I remember correctly, that, all the writing I was doing was really inspiring you to say I should try and get into writing, which hasn't panned out yet. But you also said I need to get back into my Let's Play channel.
Yep.
And Rainy Day Let's Play has gotten really powerful and all that, and not really powerful. You know what I mean?
Right.
You've done a lot more work. You've got this whole little mini studio here going. And
since
all that.
You moved here, you inspired me to restart my Let's Play channel, and that has worked. That has happened.
Right.
And it has been powerful.
You've helped inspire my work. My work has only gotten better since my time here, even with all the personal hardships. You introduced me to professional wrestling, which completely oriented my critical perspective. And
postmodern art form of the century.
Right, exactly. Just just really good stuff. And of course, we just had all these great times together. And
this is really
and of course, one of the end results of that is, of course, Smartcade.
The Let's Play of I Am Setsuna as a living document can stand testament to our last year and a half of friendship, living and being together in the same place.
It also takes care of one of the things I wanted to do here, which was doing a Rainy Day Let's Play with you. Although, it might not be the only one, because, it is time dependent, and I don't want to make any promises to your audience, but I do have a ton of Soul Reaver footage, and depending on what kind of job I find and all that when I get back to Maryland, probably a lot of time to kill.
True.
And that's only 5 hours, and we can watch that together and hopefully do that, because that'll be lovely. That's a game with which I'm completely familiar and can just dissect it.
So I want to let the audience go home.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to. I want to be able to close this. I know that stopping is difficult. We want this to go forever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you a hug. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
I Am Setsuna.
Yeah.
Very good. May not sell very well. This is a RPG that was localized to America that will have a variable, like very interesting amount of sales in Japan and in America and Europe. It's a small indie RPG produced by Square Enix in a time where JRPGs are few and far between, especially new JRPGs.
And especially JRPGs within a fairly traditional form like this one.
From Japan, like the whole 9 yards, where it's a Japanese RPG that has crossed the waters to come over here, that is an indie thing produced by a large company. This is a strange thing to have happened.
Right.
And this is good. It should be critically acclaimed. It won't be, because JRPGs never are.
That's true.
You saw it on Zammed. They gave a shit review on Zammed.
It's been...
Okay,
okay, to be fair, I haven't read the Zam review. Maybe it really is terrible.
It is absolutely garbage.
I have seen lots of 7 and 8s out of 10s, which means that a year now I can write a Zeal article about it. Go ahead. Yeah.
And this is just because this has always been the case for JRPGs. They take a long time to get into. The review structure that it takes for press to get a review copy and be able to play it, if it turns them off immediately, it's just not going to be able to get the love that it deserves. Right. These games fall through the cracks because of that. It's a common thing. What is the future for JRPGs after I Am Setsuna? Do you think that this has legs? This process has legs? And do you think we can get more things like I Am Setsuna?
I think that Square Enix is smart enough to know that this is the first game by an independent studio, and Square Enix rarely gives up on a concept after the first try unless it's a huge disaster. I mean, hell, they made 13 sequels.
Yeah, but
I mean, they kind of had to, but
that is a testament to their not giving up on something.
Right, they are very...
The 13 sequels really are. However, we still don't have a Kingdom Hearts 3.
That's because they're actually putting money and time into that.
I'm just saying that sometimes they have good ideas that also don't get the love that we want. And I Am Setsuna and this lineage of maybe pseudo indie role-playing games can't afford 10 years for the next one to show up. That's not how, Fox Searchlight does it. That's not how the indie trend bubble works.
I don't know how much I Am Setsuna cost to make. That is something I would love to learn.
You saw the credits, like 30 people.
It was a pretty small team.
Very small.
And in the Japanese games industry, that especially 30 people probably doesn't cost much.
No.
This, I think I Am Setsuna presents, at least economically, a model for producing traditional JRPGs going forward. In the commercial JRPG space, we're going to see a lot more games like Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 that are... because the thing that has made the JRPG economically viable in a commercial space has been the ways in which it's toyed with our JRPG form, which thankfully for the genre has also been the games that have been the most artistically experimental and interesting, like games like Final Fantasy 7, games like Kingdom Hearts.
Yep. And they have a long shelf life.
Has
been the biggest selling factor.
What
do you think would be... What do we need to do? What's needed?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say go buy the game to support the concept, but I don't think we actually have that much influence over whether this gets a sequel or not. I do hope that Square Enix has the wisdom to see that this concept has paid off, and I think the best route to...
They had the wisdom enough to publish it, so that's a good sign.
I think the route to having more JRPGs like this would just be to use the model that they use to produce Setsuna, and I think also other JRPG publishers should take note of this, because they still... a lot of big JRPGs are big budget games, and I think that you could there's lots of middle market games like AA, so to speak. The AAA terminology doesn't really work when we're talking about the industry in Japan, but still, we're talking about games like Resonance of Fate, Tales series, and all that sort of stuff.
Right. I'm just trying to binary differentiate from 15 years on a 400 team project versus I Am Setsuna's very small team.
Well, my point being that I think that I think it needs to become a little more stratified. Is basically what I'm saying, because Square Enix is one of the only companies left that produces big budget JRPGs for a large audience.
And that's because a lot of them have gone to like annual models. There's definitely your Personas, your Disgaias, and they kind of run the gamut of games that are produced over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. No, they're not like 10-year epics like we're seeing from Final Fantasy 15.
The other thing so basically it's like I think companies would be smart to save money for their big projects and do one of those like every 5 years or something like that. Like we're starting to see with Final Fantasy games, really only a major one is coming out every 5 years essentially at this point. 10, 12, 13, 15. That happened over the case of what will essentially be 15 years. That's 4 games over 15 years. I think that's smart because these games are so particularly large, and even in comparison to a game like Assassin's Creed, dense both mechanically and textually, that releasing a game as big as Final Fantasy 15 like every year would, I think, wear out its own audience, especially considering how many different people make these kinds of games.
They have a long shelf life. Yeah. They have a notably long shelf life.
And
to such an extent that people will go buy a remake of that game and then play it again a decade later.
The thing that needs to be done smartly about I Am Setsuna is that if this game is a surprising success more so than people think it is, or more so than people expect it to be, they need to not just say, well, these things are so cheap, we can just crank them out like every few months. Because...
I like that, actually. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Basically, they need to realize that one of the things that makes RPGs classics is time to chew. Okay. You know, Final Fantasy VII was... how many people even beat that game before 1999? And just, it's just, like, I think that's one of the things people need to realize. Because especially a lot of JRPGs kind of come out and then are sleeper classics, like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, or especially Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy XII was a huge mixed reaction, but is now like one of the most popular games in the series. I Am
Setsuna, I firmly believe this will be a cult classic.
I think so too.
It'll at least achieve that within its core group of people.
Yep.
Which will be very important. The only thing that I want to add to what you're saying is that, because I think a lot of what you're saying is very large scale, macro level. You literally just said, I want other RPG people to make games like Final Fantasy, which is not realistic. More
so, I want people to realize that efforts like Resonance of Fate would do better with more money and more time.
Because Square Enix budgets are on like 5 to 10 year plans, whereas other companies can't afford that. I don't even think Atlas could afford something like that, and they're a publisher. What I want to just give a more smaller solution to this thing. From what I'm seeing from I Am Setsuna, if we want more things like this, I think that it would be important to work off of this model.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Even work off of this
stratification.
Work off of this engine, even.
Right. I want
see not an I Am Setsuna 2, but RPG Factory, or is that
RPG Factory.
Literally RPG Factory company. I want to see them make a completely different story.
Well, there's that
works off of the same systems and stuff, changes out maybe some mechanics here and there, since there's a lot happening in I Am Setsuna, and other stuff could be happening in I Am Setsuna that aren't. That you could just move this engine in a way that creates a completely different game, and that could be something you could build an industry off of.
The thing I was saying, the thing I meant to say was that I don't necessarily, it'd be nice to see companies like, well, Tri-Ace hasn't around. It'd be nice to see companies like Atlas, like, spend more money on their bigger project games and, take higher risks on their bigger project games to come out with things that are more likely to be a little more polished and have like big commercial impact. But the thing about it is I want to see them put more money in bigger projects and then take, like, instead of having a little bit of money, like, medium amounts of money in lots of medium-sized projects, have a lot of money for one big project and then have little tiny bits of money for games like I Am Setsuna. Because I think RPG Factory and Setsuna, if successful, is something that a lot of studios will replicate. They'll say, well, fuck, we can take like $1 million, and not $1 million, $1 million, and we can take $1 million and make I Am Setsuna. We can do that. I know a guy who can play the piano.
I think my main idea here is that RPG Factory could, just with how I Am Setsuna is working, is if it doesn't sell the amount that Square Enix wants, they could make another game for much cheaper with the same set as I Am Setsuna, and then combined those two games could push them into making something brand new. And they'd have a lot of reputation to build off of that, and that's why I'm thinking maybe there's a way that they could do this that would make things work in their favor as being someone who can build cult classics that have long-standing tradition. They can start building their own tradition of RPGs, and I think that there's room for indie RPGs like this.
Cool.
And I keep saying indie, which we don't literally mean indie, but just that size of RPG that still holds that
Triple I, Fox Searchlight, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah, we used a lot of names to describe it. Yeah, I think that's where we can go from here. Okay. I think that's our hope, right?
Setsuna, really good game. I think we would both recommend that you go buy it and play it.
After an ending like that,
I think there's just to give another quick recap of the game. Lovely aesthetic, lovely music, a few occasionally frustrating boss fights, but otherwise sometimes some of the best boss fights I've ever seen in a JRPG. All of the stuff that I originally assessed as mechanical noise ended up coming together in a really nice way, even if it adds up to a system that's a little unbalanced, which is unsurprising for a developer's first outing.
It's almost like you have to learn the systems in an RPG to really understand why they all came together that way.
Right, but you still understand why I have a bias in an focused game against momentum kill coming across the screen, right?
I've done the same thing with almost every other RPG I've run into. Is it always takes me a long time, and sometimes even multiple playthroughs, to understand how all the systems come together.
Right.
But I also agree, we've talked about the flux system and the combo system could be implemented
by the end we still had no idea what flux meant.
Yeah. There's little things like that that didn't necessarily amount to anything, because by the end we just found the one strategy that worked for us and plopped on through the game, which created a pace that was perfect for what we were looking for. They allowed us to gimmick the game by the end of this last section. So we had our struggles, we had our trials, our tribulations, and when we really needed to push quickly through the game, we got that. It felt good.
Just lovely music, lovely combat, lovely aesthetic, etc., and just a story that recombines and reconfigures lots of classic JRPG tropes into something that I think is Howellian, postmodern, contemporary, and interesting in lots of kinds of think insert buzzword, but just,
it pushes forward.
It pushes forward. I'll also admit that it pushes a lot of my buttons.
It pushes forward a conversation that has been happening for a long time.
Right.
The JRPG tradition. It pushes that forward.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
That was it. I'm good. I'm just happy. I'm just so happy right now.
All right, let's go ahead and
Are you happy?
I'm happy.
Holy shit. This is the saddest boy in the world of all sad boys, and a role-playing game made him happy.
Well, good ones tend to.
That's your mark right there.
There you go.
We nailed it. I Am Setsuna nailed it. They got you.
Let's send these people home.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you so much for watching RDOP. If you liked I Am Setsuna, please share the love with other people.
Like, share, subscribe, etc.
Share, subscribe.
Leave a comment.
Talk to me on Twitter, please, because
at Solon Cubed, at Austin C. Howe. I
want to talk more about Setsuna all the time because it's lovely. Comment below and we'll talk more about this. I always respond to a lot of our comments.
And I'll be there too.
Yeah, we'll have you. And from all of us here, from everyone that has helped put Setsuna together, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Professor Chugonomics, Austin C. Howe. Prince Play, Solon S. Scott. Play His Labor, Linwood, Washington.
Goodbye.
I love you, man.
This has been my pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
See you around.